I invited my son and his wife for Christmas dinner on the very same day they abandoned me to go eat at her mother's house. I should have known. Maybe I did know. Maybe. I just did not want to believe it. It was my first Christmas without Robert. He died in March. He was 74. Good heart, but terrible lungs. They said he went quickly and peacefully. But there is no peace in coming back to a silent house after 50 years of marriage. No peace in waking up every morning to silence. So this year, I made a plan. I decided I would host Christmas dinner. Just something small. My son Michael and his wife Linda. Just them. No big fuss. I simply did not want to be alone. I spent 2 days cooking. Not heating up food, but real cooking. I made Robert's cornbread stuffing from scratch, glazed ham with brown sugar and pineapple slices, mashed potatoes whipped with cream and butter just the way Michael liked them when he was a boy, pecan pie and sweet tea and rolls, and a green bean casserole that took me 2 tries to get right. I even baked cookies, knowing Linda pretends she does not eat sweets but always steals one. The house smelled like home. I had not felt that in months. I also bought a real tree. Not one of those with built-in lights that you keep in the garage. A natural pine tree. It cost me almost $200, but I did not care. Robert would have said it was an unnecessary expense, but he always smiled when he saw it shine. I hung all the old ornaments, our wedding photo in the little red frame, the macaroni star Michael made in 2nd grade, the glass cardinal that broke and we glued back together in '92. And I put on the red dress that Robert always said made me look beautiful, the one with the pearl buttons. I had not worn it in years, but I needed to feel like myself. I fixed my hair the way he liked it and put on a little lipstick. I even took out the fine china we only used on Thanksgiving. Dinner was at 3 in the afternoon. I set the table at noon. By 1 o'clock, everything was ready. The ham resting, the rolls covered with foil, the tea cooling in the fridge. I lit the candles and put on music. The house looked like it was out of a magazine, and for the first time in months I felt proud and excited, even nervous. At 2:30 I sent a text to Michael, just to see you soon. There was no answer. At 3 o'clock I sat by the window. At 3:15 I started checking my phone. Maybe traffic, maybe Linda took long to get ready. At 3:30 the food started getting cold. I put the rolls back in the oven and turned down the music. Nothing. No call. No message. At 3:45, the doorbell rang. My heart jumped. I smoothed my dress and ran to the door. But it was not them. It was a delivery boy. A college kid in a light jacket holding a manila envelope. Delivery for Mrs. Emily Miller, he said. Yes, I answered, confused. He handed it to me and left without a word. I stood there on the porch with the wind cutting through the sleeves of my dress, looking at the envelope in my hands. Inside was a note written in Linda's neat, rounded handwriting. Emily, we are so sorry. We decided to spend Christmas at my mom's house this year. It was a last-minute change. We hope you understand. Love, Linda. No explanation, no real apology, no offer to reschedule. Just that, as if they had already planned it. I knew it. The silence, the vague answers about schedules, the way Michael had not called all week. They did not forget. They chose not to come. I was standing in my perfect kitchen with the food still warm on the stove, the candles flickering about to go out, the table set for 3 people, and then I understood that I had been waiting for something that was never going to happen. I poured myself a glass of tea and sat at the head of the table. I looked at the 2 empty plates in front of me and tried to eat, but my throat would not let me swallow. I stared at the ham I had basted with its juice, the pie I let cool, the stuffing I made with my own hands. None of that mattered anymore. The house felt cold again, no matter how hot the oven was. I turned off the music. I blew out the candles. I put the food in containers and put them in the fridge. Everything except the pie. I left that untouched on the counter. The phone never rang. No messages, no photos. Not a Merry Christmas. Later that night, I opened Facebook. Linda's mother had posted a photo, her dining room with the table full, wine glasses, plates half finished. Michael was sitting next to Linda holding her hand and smiling. I did not comment. I did not hit like. I just stared at the screen and thought, they did not just forget, they left me out on purpose. And that was when I knew something had changed. Maybe not just this year. Maybe it had been changing for a long time and I simply did not want to see it. But now I did see it, and I was not going to ignore it anymore. If you have ever felt forgotten by the people you love the most, please subscribe. Not for me. Do it for every person sitting in front of a silent table, wondering when love became so quiet. And if you do not feel the need to subscribe, at least tell us in the comments. Why not? I will be reading every word. That night, I could not sleep. I sat in the living room with the tree light still on, just me and that silent house. The chair where Robert used to sit was right in front of me. I used to complain that he always fell asleep there after dinner, snoring during Christmas movies. Now I would give anything to hear that sound again. I thought about the Christmases when Michael was little. Robert hung the porch lights while I baked sugar cookies in the kitchen. Michael ran through the house in pajamas, more excited about the wrapping paper than the toys. Robert always insisted on reading The Night Before Christmas by the fireplace. He held the book with one hand and sat Michael on his lap with the other. That chair belonged to Robert. But on Christmas Eve, both of them always fit. We had our traditions. I made a big breakfast on Christmas morning, eggs and sausage and cinnamon rolls. Robert stole a piece of pie before lunch, and I pretended not to notice. The day always ended with us sitting on the sofa, tired and happy, watching the same old Christmas movies, the ones we had already seen 100 times. But after Michael got married, things started to change. The first Christmas they were married, Linda said they would spend it with her parents. I understood. Newlyweds want to create new memories. I told them we would do something the following week. Then the next year, it was the same. We are going with Linda's family again. I told myself it was just a phase. They were young. They were busy balancing work and travel. I did not want to be one of those mothers who makes everything about themselves. Even so, every year it seemed I became more of a backup plan. When they came, it was always in a hurry. We cannot stay long. We have to leave before traffic gets heavy. Linda never helped in the kitchen. She sat with her phone scrolling the screen or taking calls while I cooked. Michael tried to pretend he was helping, but he was glued to her side waiting for her signal to leave. Last year they arrived 2 hours late, already full from eating at her mother's house. They picked at the food, praised everything just enough to be polite, and left before dessert. Even so, I kept trying. I thought if I made it nice enough, warm enough, familial enough, they would come back, that maybe seeing what they were missing would make them remember how it felt before. But this year was different. I was alone. Robert was gone. And for the first time, they did not even bother to show up. They did not even call. I sat there wondering what I had done wrong. Did I insist too much? Did I make them feel guilty? Did I talk too much about Robert and make the house heavy? Or maybe I was not modern enough anymore. Maybe I talked too much about how things were before. Maybe not. I do not know. I grabbed my tablet and started scrolling on Facebook. I do not usually check Linda's mother's page, but that night I did. There they were, all smiles, long table, white tablecloth, shiny plates, lit candles. Linda in a green sweater holding a glass of red wine. Michael by her side laughing at something someone said. Her mother had written a caption, "So grateful for a house full of family this Christmas." There was even text under one of the photos, "Grateful for another year, surrounded by love." It hurt more than I expected, not because they were happy, but because they did not even think of me when they wrote that. I looked at the time, 9:41 at night. Still nothing from Michael, not even a text to say Merry Christmas. I thought maybe he would write when things calmed down. He always did, even in college, even when he was out of the country for work. But now, silence. I looked around the living room. The Christmas stockings were still hanging on the fireplace. One for me, one for Robert, one for Michael. I still had not taken them down. I do not know why. Maybe I thought seeing them there would keep the feeling of normalcy. But nothing felt normal. The house was not just silent. It was hollow, as if something had been ripped out of it. Not just Robert, not just the noise, also the connection, the feeling that I belonged in someone's life. I walked to the dining room and started clearing the plates. The food was already cold. I put everything in containers, every bite untouched. I wrapped the pie and put it in the fridge. I did not want to see it on the counter in the morning. While I cleaned the table, I looked at Robert's chair again. I remembered the year Michael gave him a bottle of whiskey and said, "Dad deserves something special this Christmas." I remembered Robert with misty eyes. He was not an emotional man, but that moment touched him. And now, just a few years later, his own son did not even pick up the phone. Later that night, I sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing the red dress. My hair was coming undone, and the mascara I had applied so carefully that afternoon was smudged. I was 72, and somehow in the course of a single holiday, I felt older than ever. That night, I went to bed with the lights off. Robert's old robe folded beside me, and I realized something I had not wanted to admit even to myself. Michael had started letting go of me a long time ago. I just had not noticed until now. They did not just abandon me. They made sure I saw it. If that does not hurt, I do not know what does. If you believe no one deserves to be treated like this, subscribe. If not, then comment. And tell me why someone should watch their family laugh from a screen instead of from their own living room. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Actually, I had not slept. I just lay there thinking. The tree lights were still on in the living room. I had not turned them off the night before. The house was silent. Too silent. I did not bother making coffee right away. I put on a sweater and went outside. The patio was still damp from the morning frost. I hugged myself and walked down the stone path toward the garden. Robert always said walking around the yard first thing in the morning helped him think. I did not understand it before. Now I did. I passed the raised beds we tended together, past the old bench that needed sanding, and I stopped in front of the bird feeder hanging from the tree. I was not sure why. Maybe out of habit. Robert filled it every Saturday like clockwork. And then I saw it. There was an envelope hidden right behind the feeder, stuck between the post and the little wooden roof. It was sealed but dusty on the edges, as if it had been there for quite some time. I took it down carefully. The handwriting was what froze me. It was Robert's slanted writing, a little shaky but still neat. I ran my fingers over my name. Just Emily. No last name, no address. Just like he signed my birthday cards. In one corner of the envelope was a date, 11 months ago, a week before he died. I stood there for a moment holding it. Once inside the house, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at it for a while. I was not sure if I was ready to read it, but I opened it anyway. His handwriting filled a single sheet. No greeting, no beating around the bush. If you are reading this, something happened that I hoped would not happen. Go to my desk. To the top drawer. There is more. That was all. I shot up and went straight to the study. Robert's old desk was just as he left it. The pens lined up. The calculator next to a pad with numbers scribbled in the margin. I opened the top drawer. There, taped to the back of the inner panel, was another envelope. Thicker. He had folded the edges to seal it well, and a paperclip held a small gold key. Inside the envelope was a folded note and a printed document. But it was the note I read first. Emily, if Michael ever closes the door on you, this will make sense. You will find everything you need to know in the place this key opens. It is yours. It always was. You just did not know it. That was all. I stood there, key in one hand, letter in the other, feeling the weight of something I did not yet understand. He planned this. Robert, with his quiet way and his calm voice, had left something behind, something he did not trust our son to protect. I took a deep breath and looked again at the folded paper that came with the key. It was a deed, legal looking, with my name on it. I read the address twice to be sure. It was a place near upstate New York, about 45 minutes from our house. I did not recognize the street. Robert had never mentioned any other property to me. I thought we had only one house, the house where we lived. I took out my phone and typed the address into the map. It appeared as a cabin on a quiet road near the woods and mountains. No photos, no listings, just a red dot on the screen. I sat for a long time trying to understand it all. Why would Robert hide a place like that from me? Why leave a key? And why now? But the note kept echoing in my mind. If Michael ever closes the door on you, he knew. He saw it coming. Maybe not this exact Christmas, maybe not Linda's note on my door, but something. He knew something about Michael that I did not want to admit, that he could become cold, that he could forget where he came from. Robert was always more reserved with those things. I was the one who believed in giving second chances. Third ones, too. Robert kept score, mental and written. I took the key and turned it between my fingers. Smooth edges. The brass looked old, but it still worked well. Whatever door it opened, Robert wanted me to find it when I needed answers. And I needed them now. I looked at the photo on the bookshelf, the one of Robert and Michael and me the day Michael graduated from college. Robert had his hand on Michael's shoulder. I was holding on to Robert's arm. The three of us were smiling, but even now I could notice it. Robert's eyes were not on the camera. They were on Michael, observing him. That night, I packed a small bag, some clothes, a flashlight, an extra pair of shoes. I did not know what I was heading toward, but something inside told me I should not wait. What Robert had left behind was there waiting, and I was finally ready to find it. When I zipped up the bag, I saw the red dress I had worn the day before still hanging on the back of the chair. It looked different now. No longer like a festive memory, but like a reminder of what was missing, of who I used to be when I believed family would always be there. Robert had been gone almost a year, but somehow I felt like he had just spoken to me for the first time in months, and I was finally ready to listen. I left shortly after sunrise. It was cold, but the roads were clear. I brought a thermos with coffee and a peanut butter sandwich in case I got hungry. That was how Robert always prepared for trips, even the short ones. Bring more than you think you need, just in case, he used to say. The GPS showed 46 minutes to the address near upstate. I drove through rolling hills and winter trees. I passed gas stations where I had stopped over the years, but when I got closer, I did not recognize the road. It was hidden behind a small hardware store and then continued down an unmarked gravel path. I had to slow down and check the numbers twice before finding it. There it was, an old white farmhouse with blue shutters and a stone porch. Nothing fancy, not neglected either, just quiet, as if it were waiting for someone. I parked in the gravel driveway. The front steps creaked when I walked up. I reached into my coat pocket and took out the key. It slid into the lock as if it had always belonged there. When the door clicked open, something inside me shifted, like when a memory you did not know you had comes rushing back. I walked in and closed the door behind me. The air was warm, as if someone had been there recently. Everything was clean, not spotless, but cared for. There was a small entryway with a wooden bench, boots arranged neatly to one side, and a coat rack with one of Robert's old jackets hanging there. I took a few steps into the living room, and then I saw the photos. On the fireplace mantel were framed pictures, one of Robert and me at the beach, another of our 35th anniversary, and one I had not seen before. Robert sitting in a rocking chair on that very porch, holding a cup of coffee. I looked around and realized all the furniture matched our taste. They were not purchase sets, but pieces Robert had restored over the years. The lamp with the small stain on the shade, the quilt from the old guest room. It was as if someone had taken pieces of our life and placed them in this house. There was a folded note on the coffee table. I sat down slowly and opened it. This is yours in case one day they forget who you are. Robert. That was all. No explanation, no date. I put down the note and looked around again. Every detail felt familiar, even though I had never stepped foot in that house before. The curtains were the same pattern I used in our first house. The bookshelf had the same order of titles Robert kept at home. It was not just a house. It was a backup version of our life, one he had created without telling me. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. The pantry was stocked. Canned vegetables, boxed pasta, jars of peanut butter, bags of rice. Nothing expired. The fridge was unplugged but clean. There was even a grocery list stuck to the inside of the cupboard written in his handwriting. The basics: coffee, bread, eggs, sugar. The corner table had 2 chairs, a placemat at each spot. It looked like he had planned for the 2 of us to be there. I opened the drawers. Everything was labeled: measuring cups, dish towels, spare batteries, as if he knew someone would be opening them for the first time. I walked down the hall and looked inside the bedrooms. One had a quilt on the bed folded carefully, a small lamp, no dust. The other room was empty except for some boxes stacked in a corner. Some said, "Emily's stuff." I did not open them. I did not know if I was ready yet. Back in the living room, I sat on the sofa and stared at the fireplace. Robert had done all this for me, not just in case something happened, but in case the people closest to me forgot how to treat me. He had seen it coming, the slow change, the way Michael stopped calling regularly, the way Linda took over the holidays, and how I kept making excuses for both of them. He knew, and instead of saying something that might break the family, he built me a safety net, one I did not even know I had until now. I picked up the note again. "This is yours, in case one day they forget who you are." The second time, it hit me differently. It did not speak just of a house. It spoke of me, of my worth, of my identity, of the person I was before I started making myself small to keep the peace, before I stopped saying what I really felt. This house, this little farmhouse, was his way of reminding me that I was still someone worth showing up for. I made tea in the kitchen, using the kettle on the stove. I found a tin of chamomile in the cupboard. I sat by the window with my cup and simply looked out at the yard. There was a birdhouse at the back, another bench near a patch of dry grass that maybe in spring had been a flower garden. It was silent but not empty. I could almost hear him saying, "It is not much, but it is ours." I stayed there most of the morning, walking through every room, allowing myself to feel every corner. I did not cry. I thought I would, but I did not. There was something reassuring in knowing he had thought that far ahead, that he had made a plan not out of fear, but out of love. And the strangest part was that Michael did not know this place existed, which meant he could not take it from me. He could not sell it. He could not control it. He could not say it needed management or convince me to downsize my life. This was out of his reach. It was mine. Only mine. I looked at the living room again, the photos, the chair, the coat by the door, and for the first time in almost a year, I did not feel forgotten. I felt found. 3 days after visiting the farmhouse, I received a call. I almost did not answer. Usually I do not answer numbers I do not recognize, but something told me to pick up. "Mrs. Emily?" a man asked. "Emily Miller." Formal but not cold. "Yes, speaking. My name is Mr. Bennett. I was your husband's accountant." I sat down. "I hope I am not calling at a bad time," he said. "I have wanted to reach out, but I was not sure if this was the right moment." I told him it was fine. The truth was, I no longer knew what the right moment was. "You see," he continued, "Robert left specific instructions regarding his trust. I was only to contact you if something changed, if something did not feel quite right with the family." He paused as if testing the waters. "From what I understand, there has been a change in how things feel." I looked at the red envelope on the table, the one Linda had sent with the courier on Christmas Day. "Yes," I said quietly. "I suppose so. I think it is time you and I sat down to talk. He said there was information my husband wanted me to have if circumstances changed, as he feared they might. He did not mention Michael's name. It was not necessary. We met the next day at a modest office downtown. It was on the second floor of a brick building with a bakery on the ground floor, one of those places you pass dozens of times without noticing. Mr. Bennett was older than I expected, 60-something, gray hair neatly trimmed and kind eyes behind simple glasses. He shook my hand firmly and led me to a room full of filing cabinets and old photographs of mountain trails and lighthouses. When we sat down, he took out a thin black folder. Before we begin, he said, "I want to tell you something. Your husband was a very smart and very careful man." I nodded. He always had a backup plan. "Exactly," answered Bennett. "Robert kept most of his finances simple. But 5 years ago, he quietly moved a portion of his retirement savings into a separate trust, in your name only, totally private. It does not appear in the family portfolio." I blinked. I knew nothing about that. He did not want you to know. Not until it was necessary. He opened the folder and turned it toward me. There is a little over $650,000, managed conservatively, untouched since he created it. I stared at the paper. My name was clearly printed at the top. 5 beneficiaries, no successors. He called it the Rainy Day Fund, just in case, said Mr. Bennett. He said if anything ever happened to him and you felt pressured or pushed aside, you would have somewhere to stand. I felt my hands go cold. I had no idea. He nodded. That was the point. He did not want anyone convincing you to part with it before you were ready. Not even him. I leaned back in the chair. Why would he think I would need protection, Mr. Bennett looked at me carefully and then took out another document. "Because of this," he said. It was a short summary, a history of financial requests over the last decade. 3 stood out immediately, all from Michael. Your son went to Robert for help. He explained. The first time was in 2014. He said he wanted to start a home remodeling business. Robert gave him $25,000 as a gift. That did not surprise me. I remembered Robert mentioning it years ago. Michael had even sent a thank you card, even brought flowers. Then in 2016, he asked again, this time $75,000. And, I asked, Robert said no. I raised my eyebrows. Michael never told me that. Mr. Bennett took out another paper. Robert said no again in 2019. Same request, different argument. This time, it was Linda's dream of buying and flipping houses. Robert refused again. Did they ever find out about the trust? He did not answer. But they pressured him a lot during that last year. Frequent calls, emails. Robert showed me some. He handed me copies. I read them slowly. One said, "We just want Mom to be well taken care of, but we need more control if we are going to help manage things." Another said, "We cannot make long-term plans if everything remains in Mom's name." There it was, hidden behind kind words, polite on the surface, but every line asked for the same thing: power. Mr. Bennett let me read in silence. When I finished, he said, "There is something else." He took another document. This is from 2018. The bank flagged it. The paper was a copy of a check cashed. It had my signature, or something that looked like it. It was a withdrawal for $15,000. He explained. "From your joint account marked for home improvements." The signature was very similar, but not exact. Robert noticed. He had it checked. I looked closer. It was my name, without a doubt, but it was not my handwriting. "I never signed this," I said. "I know," he replied. Robert kept quiet because he did not want to accuse anyone without proof. But after investigating a little more, he found the trail. The check was given to a contractor in the city for a rental property Linda was managing. My mouth went dry. They had forged my signature. Mr. Bennett nodded. Robert confronted them in private. Linda denied it. Michael said it must be a mistake. But Robert told me that after that day, he started separating the assets more. I did not know what to say. "I am sorry you are finding out about everything like this," he said softly. But your husband wanted you to know the full picture. He saw the signs clearly. And they were waiting for my name to disappear, I whispered. He nodded. Robert believed so. His exact words were, "They are not planning for her future. They are planning around it." I sat for a while with the folder on my lap. Now it all made sense. The rushed visits, the way Linda always asked about papers, the way Michael hovered around the topic of money, never asking me directly, but always bringing it up. Mr. Bennett leaned forward. "The trust is yours, Mrs. Emily. No one else can touch it. And there is something else on the way." Robert left instructions to transfer funds from a small account he kept under a business name. He said to move them if this meeting ever happened. I looked at him. "How much?" "Another $1.4 million approximately," he answered. I shook my head. "He never told me. He did not say, and he did not want to. He wanted you to feel safe without having to ask for it. This was about giving you options." I felt my throat close up. He stood up and handed me the folder. "Everything you need is here. I will help you with the paperwork when you are ready. There is no rush." Leaving his office, the cold hit me full force. I stood outside for a moment, breathing the winter air. My whole life had just changed again. Robert had been gone almost a year, but he was still here in his quiet way, taking care of me one step ahead. And now I saw what he saw. I was not crazy for feeling pushed aside. I was not imagining it. They had plans that did not include me, but now I had one of my own. If your own son ever tried to erase you from your future, would you not want someone to worry about you? Subscribe if you think mothers deserve better. And if you think I am exaggerating, tell me in the comments. Go ahead. I want to read what you think. I returned from Mr. Bennett's office just before sunset. The sky was dull gray and everything felt silent. One of those cold days where the air bites your cheeks before you even get to the door. I parked in the driveway and grabbed my bag from the seat. I had not even reached the porch when I noticed a familiar car parked across the street. Michael's. I stood there for a second watching it. Engine running, lights on. And in the passenger seat, Linda. She was looking at her phone as if she had not even noticed I had arrived. I walked up the steps, turned the key, and stepped into the warmth of my house. Before I could take off my coat, I heard footsteps behind me. "Mom." I turned around. Michael was on the porch. He did not smile. He shoved his hands in his jacket pockets and seemed to force himself to look calm. "We need to talk." I nodded and left the door open, but only enough. He did not come in. "I know Christmas was wrong," he started. "Really wrong." I said nothing, just waited. He shifted uncomfortably. "Linda thought it would be easier to spend it with her mom this year. Things got complicated and we did not want to hurt feelings." He rubbed his neck as if the words stung coming out. "You could have called," I said. "I know. I should have. That was my fault." Another pause. I could hear the car still running behind him. Linda had not gotten out. Michael looked at the ground and then looked back up. "I actually wanted to ask you something." "Here it comes," I thought. "About Dad's things," he said. "The old accounts. I have been going through some files he left in the garage, and I thought, if you needed help sorting anything out, the financial stuff, some papers, I could help you." I stared at him. In that moment, he looked a lot like Robert. The same forehead line, the same eyes. But that expression, that tone, they were not Robert's. They were something else. "What made you think I need help?" I asked. He blinked. "Well, you have been quiet and we have been worried." I leaned against the doorframe. "You have not called in 3 weeks." I know. But everything has been very hectic. Linda has been trying to get the business off the ground and we are looking into refinancing the house." "You mean the rental house in the city?" He froze. I saw the blow land. He did not expect me to know. How? Do not worry about how I said. Just answer me one thing." He looked at me, waiting. "Did you know she forged my signature on that check?" He looked away. That was answer enough. I let the silence sit there for a moment. And then I took a step back and opened the door a little wider, not to invite him in, but so my next words would be clear. "You were not coming to see how I was," I said. "You were coming to see what I have. Mom, no. Do not interrupt me." He shut his mouth. "I know about the trust. I know about the accounts Dad moved. I know about the requests you made, the ones he rejected." He looked like a child caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Only this time, it was not cookies. It was my future. Do you think I do not know how to recognize when someone fakes kindness just to see what they can get? He took a step forward. "It is not like that," he said. "We just wanted to make sure everything was manageable." "Manageable for who?" I asked. "For you. You have gone through a lot and decided now was a good time to intervene and take control." He did not answer. I looked past him toward the car. Linda still had not moved. "Is she not coming in?" I asked. He shook his head. "She thought it would be better if I spoke to you alone. She is probably worried you will say too much." "Mom, you are overthinking." I did not answer. "I am finally thinking clearly." He shifted again. "Uncomfortable. I do not need help managing anything I said. I have everything I need. Robert made sure of that." He clenched his jaw. "I just wanted to make sure you were okay," he said. Softer now. I nodded. "I am. For the first time in a long time." He stood there not knowing what to say. The cold started creeping through the door. "Go home, Michael," I said. "Tell Linda I say hello." He opened his mouth as if he wanted to respond but held back. Without another word, he turned around and went back to the car. I watched him get in. I saw Linda lean over to say something to him. The car backed out, paused for a second at the end of the driveway, and then drove off. I closed the door. The house was still warm. The windows had fogged up a little from the cold outside and the heat inside. I wiped a pane with my sleeve and saw the car disappear down the street. They did not come to fix anything. They came to test the waters, to see what I knew, to measure what they could still access. And now they knew I was not going to hand over anything. I was not going to make myself small or apologize for not being ready to forget what they had done. Robert saw this coming. He did not leave me the farmhouse just for peace and quiet. He left it to me to remind me who I was, and now I was starting to remember. 2 mornings later, the phone rang. It was just past 7 in the morning, and I had barely poured coffee. For a moment, I almost did not answer. Then I saw the name on the screen. "Adele," I answered immediately. "Good morning, Adele," I said. She did not even say hello. "Emily, did you hear what Linda is planning?" My heart skipped a beat. "What are you talking about?" "She is telling people, mainly on her side, of course, that you are not well, that maybe you need someone to intervene legally. A cousin of mine heard it from her sister-in-law, who still works at the courthouse downtown." I leaned against the kitchen counter. What exactly did she say? "They are saying you show signs of confusion, that you have been isolating yourself, that you are unstable." She pronounced the last word carefully as if it tasted bad to say it. I did not answer immediately. "She is trying to build a case," Adele continued, "and if she is serious, they could try to challenge your capacity to manage your affairs, your house, your money." I was not even surprised. "She is cunning," I said. "She always takes care not to get her hands dirty directly." "Enough to know you have something she wants," Adele replied, "but not enough to realize you still have fight in you." I let out a breath. "I did not want to believe we would get to this, I know, darling," she said softly. "None of us wants to believe that about our own. But here we are." Adele had been my neighbor for almost 20 years. War widow, sharp as a tack, direct, and the kind of woman who never let tea steep too long or a lie float in the air. "You are not crazy," she said. "You are just waking up. There is a difference." That phrase hit me harder than I expected. I stood at the sink for a while after hanging up, looking out the window at 2 cardinals jumping under the tree phone still in hand. I was not crazy. I had spent so much time doubting myself, thinking maybe I was too sensitive, too nostalgic. But now I saw it clearly. This was not emotion. It was power. It was control. And I was in the way of what they believed they deserved. Later that afternoon, Adele came over. She brought her laptop, a folder full of printed forms and cornbread, just like she always did when something serious was about to happen. We sat at my kitchen table, the same one Michael and Linda had not sat at for years. "All right," she said, opening the folder. "Let's put this in writing. No games, no waiting." We drafted a formal letter, direct but respectful. It made clear that I was in full possession of my faculties, managing my personal affairs, and completely capable of making legal decisions. We included a note indicating that from that moment on I would have legal counsel, and that any attempt to question my capacity would be met with the full force of the law. Adele even added a copy of a notarized statement she had made at her church last month, affirming my health and mental state. I added a line at the end. In my own handwriting, "I am not confused. I am not unstable. I am simply done being treated like an afterthought." We printed the letter, signed it, scanned it, and sent it by certified mail to both Michael and Linda. Adele leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms. "Done," she said. "They cannot say they were not warned." I stared at the letter in the outbox, the ink still fresh. "I am done begging them to love me," I said out loud. Adele looked at me. "Say it again." I did, and it felt like something inside me broke free. I was not just defending myself. I was letting go of the part of me that kept waiting for them to come back, waiting for them to act like family, waiting for some version of the past to walk through the door and apologize. But that version of the past no longer existed. After Adele left, I stood by the front window watching the light change outside. The air was sharp and cold. Frost outlined the edges of the glass. The garden was silent again, but I was not. That night, I sat down with a notebook and wrote my own list. Not things to fix or cook or organize, but things I wanted to do for myself. Not for Michael, not for Linda, not for the idea of the family we were. For me. Take a day trip to the Catskills. Paint the back room in the farmhouse. Start the garden early this year. Just flowers, nothing edible. Write a letter to Robert. Simple things. But every word felt like a piece of me falling back into place. And while I sat in my silent living room, a thought kept spinning in my head. They left, but I did not disappear. This world has enough people waiting to be chosen. Some of us finally choose ourselves. If that kind of strength means something to you, subscribe. And if not, I dare you to comment and explain why. I want to read what you think. A week after we sent the letter to Michael and Linda, there was a knock at the door. It was early afternoon. I was home folding laundry in the living room with a rerun playing softly on the TV. I looked out the window first out of habit now. It was Mr. Bennett. I opened the door and smiled. "You did not call," I told him. "I did not want to," he replied, lifting a small cardboard box. This had to be delivered in person. I stepped aside and he entered, placing the box carefully on the kitchen table. It was not big, about the size of a shoebox, but it was sealed well with my name written on top in Robert's handwriting. I felt a slight dizziness just seeing it. "Robert gave me this the week before he died," said Mr. Bennett. "He asked me not to give it to you until I was sure you were ready." He paused and added, "Are you?" He did not stay long, just enough to explain to me that this was not a legal document. "It is personal," he said. He wanted it to be just between you and him. I nodded and walked him to the door. Back inside, I sat down with a cup of tea and opened the box slowly. Inside was a leather notebook, dark green, the kind Robert used to buy at the stationery store downtown, the one that closed 5 years ago. I ran my fingers over the cover. It was worn at the edges. He had filled it. The first page said simply, "If you are reading this, it means I could not say all this out loud, so here goes. Everything. Holding nothing back." I turned to the next page. Everything was handwritten. The ink was smudged in some spots. Some words crossed out, others circled. Every entry had a date. They started almost exactly a year before he died. The first ones were simple: how he felt, things he had noticed, the weather, my favorite meals. But by the 5th page, the tone started to change. He wrote about his fears, not of dying. Robert was never afraid of that. He was afraid of what would happen to me after. He wrote, "Emily is the strongest person I know, but even strong people get tired. And when she gets tired, she does not ask for help. She just smiles and keeps serving others until she has nothing left for herself." He was right. He continued, "Michael has become distant. I have noticed it is not just work. Linda has a way of making him feel like I am a burden. That Emily is old-fashioned, someone to be tolerated instead of appreciated." I sat there with my hands shaking a little. Page after page, he poured out everything he saw, but never said out loud. He talked about the late-night talks we used to have, about how I hummed while folding towels, about how Michael ran to my arms after school, and how slowly that boy disappeared. Robert did not just see the changes, he felt them. And he knew I felt them too, even when I had not said a word. Halfway through the notebook, he wrote something that froze me. "If one day you find yourself sitting alone at our table in that red dress waiting for someone who does not arrive, I want you to know that I saw it coming, and that it has nothing to do with you. They left, but you are still here, and you are still enough." I had to close the notebook for a moment. I put my hand to my chest and took several deep breaths. I did not even realize I was crying until a tear fell on the page. When I kept reading, I found the entries where he started planning. He had met with Mr. Bennett, spoke about what to do if things got cold, put the farmhouse in my name, created the private trust, and left something else I did not know about. A foundation. It was not big yet, but it had a name. The Emily J. Miller Fund for Independent Women. He wrote, "I have set aside a small amount to start. It is not much now, but with time and the right people, it will grow. It is meant for women like Emily, widows, grandmothers, caregivers who spend their lives giving and one day realize they were left behind." For a moment, I could not breathe. My name written by him not just as a wife or mother, but as something else, as someone who mattered not for what she did for others, but for who she was. He wrote a mission statement. He noted ideas, places to reach out to. A note said, "Maybe Adele can help spread the word. She has that church newsletter." I laughed through tears. He knew how things worked in this town. Toward the end of the notebook, his handwriting became shakier. The entries were shorter. There was more space between the dates,